It starts with a tremor, and not the gentle kind that just rattles the windows. This is a deep, violent shudder that rips through the heart of Yellowstone National Park. Within minutes, the evacuation orders scream across every phone and TV. Thousands of tourists scramble to escape, their faces a blur of confusion and raw terror. They don't know it yet, but they're the lucky ones. They are the last people to see the world as it was. For the rest of us, the countdown has just begun. This is the story of America's worst nightmare, the day the Earth decided to exhale. For weeks, the signs were there. You might have missed them at first. Yellowstone gets earthquake swarms all the time, right? But this was different. Not dozens of tremors, but thousands. The ground itself started to bulge, rising several inches in just a few days, a terrifyingly clear signal that something massive was pushing up from below. Rivers running through the park began to steam, then boil. Even the famous geysers, usually as predictable as a clock, either went eerily silent or erupted in chaotic, unpredictable bursts. Down at the Yellowstone Volcano Observatory, scientists were watching their instruments with a growing sense of pure dread. Their warnings went from concerned to frantic. They knew exactly what these signs meant. The colossal magma chamber that had been sleeping for over 600,000 years was waking up. The pressure was building, cracking the rock above it and searching for a way out. The final, terrible warning was a series of massive earthquakes that shook the whole region. And then, a deafening silence. The calm before the storm. The moment it blows is on a scale that defies human imagination. This isn't a trickle of lava. It's a cataclysm. A chunk of land 45 by 85 kilometers wide is violently erased from the map, blasted into the sky. In a single instant, over 1,000 cubic kilometers of ash, gas, and pulverized rock rocket into the atmosphere, soaring 50 kilometers high into the stratosphere, punching straight through the airspace where jets normally cruise. But the most immediate threat isn't the ash cloud, it's the pyroclastic flows. Think of a superheated avalanche of gas and volcanic glass, moving at hundreds of kilometers an hour. It's a rolling wall of death, incinerating everything in its path. These flows surge from the caldera, wiping the entire park from existence. The mountains, the forests, the rivers, all of it gone, buried under a sea of searing hot ash. Anything within a 100-kilometer radius vanishes in minutes. Wyoming, Idaho, and Montana are the first to feel the supervolcano's wrath as these unstoppable waves consume towns and cities whole. The shockwave alone is powerful enough to kill tens of thousands. There's no outrunning this. There's no surviving it. This is the kill zone. As the first hour ticks by, the world starts to grasp the sheer scale of the catastrophe. The pyroclastic flows finally slow, leaving behind a sterile, gray landscape of absolute desolation stretching for hundreds of miles. Cities like Salt Lake City could find themselves buried under feet of ash, not inches. The sky over a huge portion of the United States is now a permanent, choking black. Then the ash begins to fall, and this isn't like campfire ash. It's a heavy, abrasive mix of tiny rock fragments and glass, falling like wet cement. Within hours, it's collapsing buildings under its crushing weight and suffocating crops. It clogs the engines of any vehicle that dares to move, grinding transportation to a halt. It poisons water sources, turning rivers into a thick, toxic sludge. For anyone caught in the ashfall, every breath is a gamble. The microscopic shards of glass in the air shred lung tissue, causing widespread respiratory failure. All air travel across North America is grounded indefinitely. The country is paralyzed. The states closest to the blast, Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, Colorado, and Utah, are plunged into total darkness and chaos. Rescue efforts are impossible. There's nowhere to go and no way to get there. By the end of the first week, the disaster has gone global. The jet stream has caught the massive plume of ash and sulfur dioxide, dragging it across the continent and out over the Atlantic. Day turns into a creepy, permanent twilight in cities like Chicago, New York, and Washington, D.C. as a thick haze blots out the sun. Within 4 days, the cloud reaches Europe, The rest of the world can only watch as America goes dark. The ashfall has severed communication lines, crippled the power grid, and obliterated transportation. The country's agricultural heartland is buried, a loss that signals a terrifying future for the global food supply. But the ash is just one part of the nightmare. The eruption has pumped hundreds of millions of tons of sulfur dioxide straight into the stratosphere. This gas mixes with water vapor, creating a fine aerosol that wraps around the entire planet like a shield, reflecting sunlight back into space. The Earth begins to cool. The year that follows is a year without a summer. Global temperatures plummet, potentially by 4 to 10 degrees Celsius, with the northern hemisphere hit even harder. This sudden climate shift is catastrophic. Widespread crop failures trigger a global famine. The monsoons fail, devastating agriculture in Asia and Africa that billions of people depend on. The world is thrown into a volcanic winter that could last for a decade or more. Economies collapse. Nations turn on each other, hoarding resources and sealing their borders. The intricate web of global trade that our civilization depends on is completely shattered. The fight for survival becomes a daily reality for the billions who are left, struggling to endure in a world that has been irrevocably changed. Okay, before you start packing your go bag and heading for a bunker, let's take a deep breath and crash back down to reality. What I've just described is a what-if scenario, pieced together from geological evidence of past cataclysms. So, is it actually going to happen? The scientists who watch Yellowstone 24/7 have a pretty clear answer. No, not anytime soon. The U.S. Geological Survey, USGS, keeps the volcano's alert level at normal and the aviation code at green. That's the lowest possible level. It means things are quiet. For example, in September 2025, the park saw only 87 small earthquakes, with the biggest being a minor magnitude 3.3. That's just business as usual for an active volcanic area. Scientists would need to see thousands of earthquakes a day, the ground swelling by feet instead of inches, and massive changes in gas emissions before they even started to worry. We're not seeing any of that. New research also shows that the magma chamber isn't some giant balloon of lava ready to pop. It's more like a hot, mostly solid sponge with small pockets of molten rock. Estimates suggest it's only about 2% to 30% molten, which is way below the roughly 50% threshold needed to fuel a super eruption. The last one was about 630,000 years ago. So, is it overdue? That's a total myth. Volcanoes don't run on a schedule. In fact, many scientists think the Yellowstone hotspot might be winding down. The most likely eruption in the future wouldn't be a world ender, but a much smaller lava flow. And even that is incredibly unlikely in our lifetimes. The power simmering under Yellowstone is genuinely mind-boggling, a humbling reminder of who's really in charge of this planet. Thinking about a full-blown super eruption is a terrifying but fascinating thought experiment. It shows just how fragile our modern, interconnected world really is. But here's the key takeaway. It's also a story about incredible science. While Yellowstone is an active supervolcano, it's also one of the most intensely monitored places on Earth. The data tells us this American giant is sleeping soundly, and the apocalypse scenario we just walked through belongs firmly in the world of speculation, not science. The real story isn't about impending doom. It's about the brilliant minds working to understand our planet and the wild, living beauty of Yellowstone itself. So what's more amazing? The terrifying power of a volcano, or the human ingenuity that lets us listen to its heartbeat? If you had fun exploring the fine line between geological apocalypse and real-world science, do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. We're always digging into the biggest what-ifs and the science behind them. And if you think this was scary, wait till you see what we found out about the Cascadia subduction zone. Click here to watch that next. Thanks for hanging out with us.